Let's just start by taking a moment together, if you can. Find a quiet space. Try to still the noise around you and maybe, the noise inside too. Quiet your thoughts. And as we settle into this time, I want to pose a question, something to maybe hold on to during our deep dive today. Just mull it over in your mind, in your heart. What area of your life, what part are you still trying to control instead of surrendering to God?
Hmm. Yeah, that question, it really gets right to the heart of so much we wrestle with, doesn't it?
It
It kind
does.
of pushes past the everyday stuff and asks us to look deeper.
Absolutely, because the path we want to explore today, this journey we're invited on, well, it isn't always painted as easy or comfortable. Blessings can be part of it, for sure,
Right.
but it's often described as something, well, deeper, a daily invitation to surrender, specifically to take up a cross daily.
Yes, that phrase, take up their cross daily. It's so fundamental, isn't it, to understanding this invitation.
It really is.
It comes straight from the core teachings about what it means to, truly follow. And it's not just history. It's meant for now,
Mhm.
an ongoing thing.
But I think for many people, hearing take up your cross, it can sound
Oh,
quite
yeah.
heavy.
Oh, definitely.
It might bring up images of just hardship, suffering, maybe even that we're supposed to somehow look for pain. Is that what it's really getting at? Just finding hard things to do?
No, no, that's such an important point to clear up straight away. While this path can involve hardship, and we should talk about that,
Mm-hmm.
taking up your cross daily isn't about chasing suffering itself.
Okay.
The understanding here is really that it's a daily act of surrender. It's a choice, a conscious, intentional choice to set aside the things that usually drive us.
Like what sort of things?
Well, our own pride, for starters,
Mm.
our fixed ideas, our expectations about how life should be, and, our personal desires, our ambitions.
So it's less about picking up something heavy and maybe more about letting go of the weight we're already carrying, the weight of
Mhm.
trying to run the show ourselves.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. Think of it like relinquishing personal control. We all have that deep-seated self-focus, right?
Mm.
It often comes out as pride, this feeling that we know best.
Mm-hmm.
We paint these pictures in our heads of how things ought to be, our expectations, and we chase our own ambitions, our desires. Taking up the cross daily means actively choosing to lay those down.
Okay, so you lay those down. What takes their place? What fills that space?
Well, the idea is, in their place, you're aligning your life with Christ's will. It's an active choice to live in obedience, obedience to his teachings, his leading, his purposes.
Even when it's hard.
Yes, even then, perhaps especially when it's challenging or when it goes against, our natural leanings, it's fundamentally about trust, isn't it?
Hmm.
Trusting that God's plan is ultimately for your good, that it leads to true life,
Yeah.
even if your own plan looks easier or makes more sense to you at the time.
Right. Laying down pride, expectations, desires. That sounds like it bumps right up against a lot of what we build our identities on, what makes us feel secure, maybe, or successful. It sounds, well, inherently difficult.
Oh, it absolutely can be. And the perspective we're exploring, it doesn't really sugarcoat that.
Mm.
It says quite plainly that this path, taking up the cross and following Christ, may lead through hardship.
Okay.
Surrendering your own, carefully crafted plans or your deeply held desires.
Mhm.
Sometimes that means facing tough situations, making choices that aren't popular, walking a road you definitely didn't map out.
So it's not always comfort and blessing.
No, the description is clear. This path isn't solely characterized by comfort and blessing. There's this daily call to surrender, and yeah, that surrender can involve navigating hardship.
Okay, so hardship is a real possibility, but then how does that connect back to finding true life or the deep joy, peace, and purpose you mentioned? That feels like, well, a real tension there. If you're giving up your desires and might face hardship, where's the joy?
And that's the paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's one of the most, I think, fascinating parts of this whole concept.
Mm-hmm.
Because despite the real possibility of hardship, the understanding presented is that surrendering to God also leads to deep joy, peace, purpose.
Mm.
It's not like choosing one or the other, hardship or joy.
So they coexist somehow.
Often, yes, often embracing the hardship that comes with this path of surrender is actually what leads to those profound benefits.
Right.
The hardship itself isn't the point. Surrender and obedience are the point. And the fruit of that surrender, even in the midst of difficulty, can be real joy, real peace.
Hardship leading to deep joy. That feels so counterintuitive,
Yeah.
We usually think control, comfort, that's what brings happiness. Can you maybe give us a picture? How does this actually play out? What does this surrender and then this gain look like in someone's life?
Sure. Let's look at a couple of examples. They really help illustrate this tension, this transformation. Think about the story of a Christian nonprofit leader. They were working in Ukraine. When the conflict really escalated, their personal plans, their safety, their expectations for the ministry, I mean, everything just got thrown into chaos.
Right. Their original plans, their sense of safety, all completely upended. So what did they do in that crisis?
Well, instead of pulling back, based on personal safety or trying to salvage their original strategy, this leader and their team, they chose to surrender those plans.
Wow.
They chose to stay,
Mm.
to adapt, to serve the immediate, desperate needs right there in front of them, even though it was incredibly dangerous, incredibly difficult.
And what was the result? What did they say about that surrender?
The quote that captured it, it was just so powerful. They said, "We surrendered our plans, but gained a new mission."
Wow. Gained a new mission.
Yeah. They gave up what they thought they should be doing, their ideas about ministry structure, safety.
Mm.
And through that surrender, right in the face of hardship, they stepped into something new, maybe even deeper, a purpose revealed in the crisis. The hardship was undeniable, but the surrender unlocked this profound gain, a new mission, a deeper sense of being exactly where they were called to be right then.
That really shows how letting go of your agenda can, well, open the door to God's agenda, maybe. An unexpected one.
Exactly. And the second example is just as striking, I think, but a totally different world. Think about a former stockbroker, New York City.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, that's a world built on control, right?
Mhm.
Ambition, financial success, kind of the epitome of achieving personal desires and expectations.
Definitely. A stockbroker.
Yeah.
That's a career path you associate with being in control. Making
Yeah.
the calls, driving outcomes.
Right. Well, this person chose to leave that world completely.
Right.
Became a street pastor, working with the homeless, the marginalized, a radical shift.
That's huge,
Huge. It meant surrendering not just a job, but a whole way of life,
right?
a sense of identity maybe, and that relentless drive for personal gain and control
Mm.
that often defines that world.
So what was his take on it, on that massive surrender?
His words, they just perfectly capture this counterintuitive thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
He said, "The day I gave up control was the day I started truly living."
The day I gave up control was the day I started truly living.
Wow. That just flips everything we usually think on its head, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
We're kind of taught that control brings security, stability, the power to build the life you want. He's saying the opposite is true. For finding true life anyway.
Exactly. Like the leader in Ukraine. This stockbroker surrendered a life based on personal control and ambition, the very things this path calls us to lay down,
And in letting go, he found what he called truly living. A life with deeper meaning, deeper purpose. Something the old path, for all its promise of control and success, apparently wasn't delivering. It just highlights that surrender, in this light, is presented as the absolute opposite of trying to hold on to personal control.
So bringing it back to that question we started with, what area of your life are you still trying to control instead of surrendering? Could that very effort, that trying to control, actually be stopping you from finding that deeper joy, that peace, that sense of really living?
That's the implication, isn't it? We often see surrender so negatively, like
Mhm.
giving up, admitting defeat, waving the white flag because we lost.
Right.
But the perspective offered here is totally different. It's not about giving up on life. It's about giving up on our limited way of trying to control life in favor of, well, a different kind of leadership.
Yes, that's such a clear takeaway. Surrender isn't losing, it's choosing to follow the one who actually leads to life.
That's the heart of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Surrender isn't passive. It's not just rolling over. It's an active choice, a decisive one.
Choosing to follow Christ.
Choosing to follow Christ, yeah. With the understanding, the trust that his leadership, his will, his ways, that's the path to genuine, abundant life, even if that path involves hardship, even if it means letting go of things we really hold dear, like our pride or our plans. You might surrender your idea of how things should go, but the belief is you gain something far more valuable, more lasting, by choosing to follow.
It totally reframes surrender, doesn't it? From something passive or defeated to the actual pathway to the kind of life we're maybe all seeking deep down.
Mhm.
A life connected to a bigger mission, like that leader in Ukraine. Or a life of real purpose, like the stockbroker. It's not about becoming passive. It's about active obedience.
Precisely. And it requires that daily thing, that denial of self, putting aside our own immediate comfort, our desires, our will, in favor of lining up with God's will. That's the essence of this way of the cross as a daily reality.
That daily reality.
Yeah. It's a posture of the heart, really. A continuous process. Identifying those areas where we're still trying to hold on tight, clinging to control, where pride or expectations or desires are pulling us, subtly or maybe not so subtly, away from obedience and trust.
So this deep dive, exploring surrender and taking up the cross daily, it's not just theology, is it? It brings us right back to that very first, very personal question. It's about looking at our own lives.
It really is. It's a constant journey of discernment.
Yeah.
Asking yourself, where am I still trying to micromanage the outcomes? Where am I clinging to being right or sticking to my preferred timeline? Where are my desires driving the bus instead of seeking God's guidance?
And the examples show it's possible.
They do. They show it's possible to make this choice, even when it's incredibly challenging, even when it means radical change.
It's not about finally reaching some state of perfect comfort or total control,
Well,
but about aligning with something deeper, trusting that the one we're following knows the way to life.
it's that daily invitation to surrender. And through that surrender, maybe discovering or stepping more fully into the deep joy, the peace, the purpose that comes from following the one who is life.
So as we draw this time to a close, let's maybe go back to that quiet space we started in. Let's just hold this idea for a moment. Surrender. Not as losing, but as this transformative choice. A choice that leads to life. Maybe through hardship, yes, but ultimately yielding something profoundly good.
Yeah, think about those examples again. The leader who surrendered plans but gained a mission, the stockbroker who gave up control and started truly living. They show us this isn't just theory, right? It's a lived reality for people who choose this path, this daily surrender.
And so I'll gently pose the question one more time for you to carry with you, to reflect on, maybe in the quiet moments of your day or your week, on your journey.
What area of your life are you still trying to control instead of surrendering to God?
There's like that linger.